It all started with a box. I wasn't looking for anything special, just digging through the attic on a quiet Sunday afternoon, hoping to find old family photos for my niece's school project. That's when I found it. A small, dusty box, wedged behind a stack of holiday decorations. It was filled with photographs, yellowed letters, and a few trinkets from a past I thought I knew. One photo in particular caught my eye. It was a black and white picture of a man in his early 30s, leaning casually against a car, with a confident but gentle smile. Something about him seemed familiar, his eyes, his posture, but I had no idea who he was. Later that evening, I brought the photo downstairs and asked my mother. She glanced at it, then froze. "Where did you find this?" she asked quietly. "In a box upstairs," I replied. "Who is he?" She hesitated, her lips pressed into a line, her fingers trembling slightly as she took the photo from me. "That was your father?" I stared at her, stunned. "What do you mean? Dad died 10 years ago." She sat down slowly, as if the weight of the moment had caught up to her. "The man you knew, he raised you. But this man? This is your biological father?" The room suddenly felt colder. My heart pounded as my world tilted. I had grown up believing in one version of my family, one version of myself. Now everything felt uncertain. I looked back at the photo. This stranger, this man I had never met, was my father? At that moment, I didn't know whether to be angry, sad, or just numb. All I knew was that a door had been cracked open, and I had no idea what I would find on the other side. The house felt different after that night, familiar but no longer safe in the same way. It was as if every corner, every picture frame held a secret I hadn't noticed before. I kept replaying my mother's words in my head. "That man is your biological father." I wanted answers, but every time I tried to talk to her again, she would shut down. "It was a different time," she said. "You wouldn't understand." Her voice carried pain, not defiance. Still, the silence hurt more than the truth. So I turned to what I did have, the photo. I stared at it daily, trying to piece together any detail that might lead me to something real. The car in the background had a license plate partially visible, 3 letters, a number, and a state I didn't recognize. It wasn't much, but it was something. I began digging. Old letters from the same box led me to a name, Michael J. Rayner. It appeared on an envelope addressed to my mother, postmarked over 30 years ago. There were no return addresses, no love notes, just a folded piece of paper that read, "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I never stopped thinking about him. Him. Me." I spent days scouring online databases, social media, even hiring a local search service. After nearly giving up, I found a match, Michael Rayner, age 63, residing in a quiet town 2 states away. My hands shook as I read the listing. Could it really be him? I printed out the information and sat on it for a while. Every morning I woke up thinking today would be the day I'd call. Every night I convinced myself not to. What if he didn't want to hear from me? What if I was just a closed chapter in his life? But the silence was eating me alive. I couldn't go on not knowing, not now. And so, with my heart racing, I opened my laptop, typed out a simple message, and hit send. "Hi Michael, I believe we might be connected. Do you know someone named Elaine?" It was a start. I didn't know what I expected. But I knew the silence could no longer be my home. 3 days passed with no response. I told myself not to check my inbox obsessively, but I did. Every hour. I even refreshed it in the middle of the night, hoping something, anything would appear. Then, just as I was about to give up and convince myself that Michael Rayner had no idea who I was, the reply came. Subject: Ray. Elaine. Message: Yes, I knew her a long time ago. Who is this? My heart skipped. I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. After pacing the room for nearly an hour, I wrote back, "My name is Alex. She's my mother. I believe you may be my father." It took another 2 days before he replied. "If this is real, I don't even know what to say. I've thought about this possibility many times over the years. Would you be willing to meet in person?" And just like that, the question that had haunted me for weeks turned into a decision I had to make. I booked a ticket and drove 6 hours the next morning. The town was small, quiet, almost too quiet. When I arrived at the cafe we had agreed to meet at, I was early. I sat at a table by the window, hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of coffee I had no intention of drinking. Then he walked in. Michael Rayner looked older than the man in the photo, of course. Grayer, thinner, but his eyes were the same, calm, searching. He looked at me as if trying to match my face to a memory that never fully formed. We sat down, both unsure of how to begin. "I didn't know if I'd ever get this chance," he said, after a long silence. "I wasn't allowed to be part of your life. Your mother made that choice. Maybe she had her reasons. Maybe I gave her reasons." I didn't say much at first. I just listened. He told me that when my mother got pregnant, they were both young and scared. She came from a strict family. He wanted to stay. He claimed he tried, but was pushed out of the picture. "I'm not here to make excuses," he added. "I just want you to know I thought about you more than you can imagine." The words hung heavy in the air. They didn't fix anything, but they cracked the door open. For the first time, I saw him not as a stranger in a photo, but as a flawed man. Nervous, regretful, but maybe, just maybe, genuine. And as I looked across the table, I realized something unexpected. Part of me wanted to believe him. We began to meet every weekend. It started slow, coffee, brief conversations, awkward pauses, but something about the way he showed up, week after week, began to soften the wall I didn't even know I had built. Michael didn't push. He never demanded that I call him Dad. He never tried to rewrite the past. Instead, he laid the pieces of his life on the table, honestly, carefully, and allowed me to decide what to do with them. "I've made a lot of mistakes," he said one morning as we sat in a quiet park near the edge of town, "but you weren't one of them." That sentence stayed with me. We talked about music, food, and where we had each been during different years of our lives. I learned he worked as a mechanic for over 25 years, had a dog named Murphy, and volunteered at a community center on Sundays. He lived a simple life, ordinary by most standards, but there was something solid in the way he spoke, like he was trying to build trust one brick at a time. There were moments that startled me, a laugh that sounded like mine, the way he furrowed his brow when thinking deeply, something I'd always seen in the mirror but never understood. We had the same habit of tapping our fingers when we were restless. It was like discovering parts of myself in someone I barely knew. And yet, not everything was easy. I still had questions he couldn't fully answer. Why he didn't fight harder, why he didn't reach out sooner. Sometimes the silence between his words said more than what he admitted out loud. But I was starting to understand something important. Forgiveness isn't about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about choosing to move forward, even when the past can't be changed. One afternoon, as we stood by his truck before I headed home, he looked at me and said, "I don't expect to earn your trust overnight, but if it takes years, I'll still be here." It wasn't a grand gesture. There were no dramatic reunions or teary confessions, just a man trying, and me trying to believe. For the first time, the word father didn't feel so foreign, not because of biology, but because of effort. Because little by little, the stranger in the photo was becoming someone real. It happened on a rainy Saturday. I had driven into town for our usual meetup, but this time Michael invited me to a local charity event. "It's nothing big," he had said, "just a small fundraiser at the community center. I help out when I can." I figured, why not? It seemed important to him. The place was packed with families, volunteers, and the smell of homemade chili. Michael moved through the crowd like someone who belonged, nodding to people, checking in on tables, carrying boxes. For a man I once thought had vanished from my life entirely, it was strange seeing how rooted he was here. Then it happened. An older man, someone Michael apparently knew, staggered toward me, clearly irritated. I didn't catch what he said at first, but his tone was sharp, something about showing up now, pretending you're part of his life. Before I could even respond, Michael stepped in. "That's enough, Ray," he said firmly, positioning himself between us. "He's my son, and he's welcome here." The words hit me harder than I expected, not just because he said them, but because he meant them. He wasn't defending me out of obligation. He wasn't performing for anyone's approval. In that moment, he stood up for me like a father would. It was small, almost forgettable in the grand scheme of life, but for me it was everything. After the event, we didn't talk about it. He offered to drive me to the station. The rain pattered softly on the windshield as we sat in silence for a minute before I spoke. "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly. "I know," he replied, eyes still on the road, "but I wanted to." And that was the difference. Wanting to, choosing to. As the train pulled in, I looked at him and said, "Thank you. For today." He smiled. "Any time, son." That word again, son. It used to sound like a label. Now it was starting to sound like truth. He hadn't been my father when I was growing up. He hadn't been there for birthdays, heartbreaks, graduations. But he was here now. Not trying to rewrite the past, but willing to be part of the present, and maybe the future. I boarded the train with a quiet peace. For the first time in my life, I believed it. He wasn't my father then, but he is becoming one now. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for the next chapter in this emotional journey. We share powerful family stories just like this, stories of secrets, forgiveness, and unexpected reunions. Hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when a new video drops. Whether it's uncovering the truth about the past or finding healing in the present, there's always more to explore. Join our community and be part of the conversation. Your next favorite story might just be one click away.